the first question I had was asked by Sanjay. What he wrote is, Bhagavan teaches us that mita sattvika ahara niyama, that's a term Bhagavan uses in Nāṉ Ār. Mita means moderate. Sattvika ahara means food which is conducive to the sattvic quality, that is the food which is, sattvic means calm, peaceful. The literal meaning of sattva is beingness. That is, sat is being or existence. Tva is a suffix that means, like, it has a similar meaning to ness, the suffix ness in English, so beingness. What is beingness means the state of calmness, peace. So sattvika ahara is food that is conducive to the calm state of just being. Ahara niyama means restraint. So Bhagavan recommended, but by taking care to eat food that is conducive to a sattvic state of mind, and eating such food in moderate quantities, that is the best among all restrictions. And that can help us in our practice of self-investigation. Sorry, I'm just now explaining this. So what Sanjay wrote is, Bhagavan teaches us that mita sattvika ahara niyama is the best among all restrictions. However, Bhagavan also makes it clear that our bodily life is governed entirely by prarabdha. If this is the case, whatever food, clothing, and shelter this body is to enjoy has to be according to destiny. Do you agree? If this is true, whatever type of food we eat and in whatever quantity we eat should also be decided by prarabdha. Whether we get any food or not is also decided by prarabdha. If all this is true, can we really consume mita sattvika ahara at our will? Our prarabdha may force us to consume non-sattvika food, and that too in not so moderate quantity. So if I consume junk food in huge quantity, should I really feel guilty because it could be my prarabdha making me consume such wrong types of food? So my question is, we can understand the logic of trying to consume mita sattvika ahara because this is the best aid to our practice of Atma-vichara, but how much consuming such mita sattvika ahara really is in our control? It's easy to get ourselves confused about prarabdha means what we are destined to experience. But though we cannot change what we are destined to experience in an iota, but though we cannot change what we are destined to experience, we can want to change it. Supposing some unpleasant thing is coming to us, according to our prarabdha, we can dislike it, we can not like it, we are free not to like it, we're also free to try to avoid it. Likewise, if we want to experience something which is not in our prarabdha, we are at liberty to like that thing. I can want so many things. I may not be able to achieve, they're not in my prarabdha, I cannot achieve them, but I can want anything I want. And I can also make effort to achieve that. So though whatever we experience is according to prarabdha, we have freedom of will. We have freedom to like or dislike whatever we want to like or dislike. We also have freedom to act within certain limits according to our will. But though we act according to our will, we cannot actually change what we are destined to experience. So but in order for us to experience what we are destined to experience, there are certain actions we need to do to experience whatever we're destined to experience. For example, supposing it's our destiny to be a doctor. In order to be a doctor, you have to study, you have to go to medical school, you have to go through all the training and everything. Because it's our destiny to be a doctor, that destiny will drive us to to study, to work hard, to pass our exams and to get that qualification in order to be a doctor. So like that, I mean, that's just one example, but like that, so many things that we're destined to experience require some action on our part. That's action of our body, speech, or mind. So those actions will be made to do according to prarabdha. That's what Bhagavan says in the first note of the first sentence of his note, of the note he wrote for his mother. Avarava prarabdha pakaram adakanavan angangirindu atavipan. That is, according to a prarabdha, the destiny of each person, he who is for that, being being in the heart of each of them, will make them, well, literally it means will make them dance, or make them act. So some of the actions of our body, speech, and mind are according to prarabdha. Some are according to our will. Those actions we do according to our will are called agamya. We cannot distinguish which actions we do are according to prarabdha and which are according to agamya. In many cases, certain actions may be driven by both prarabdha and agamya. For example, if it's my destiny to become a doctor, I will be made to do all that studying, but I may also want to be a doctor. I may have strong ambition. I want to be a doctor. So both my will and my destiny are both driving me to do the same actions. But other times when things are to happen according to prarabdha, but we don't want, so then our will and our destiny may be in conflict. But always what is destined to happen, that will happen. So as far as something like the food we eat and the quality of the food and the quantity of the food we eat, it is too simplistic to say, oh, it's all determined by prarabdha. That is, the prarabdha will determine the pleasures and pains we get. So if we are destined to enjoy our food, we will enjoy our food, whether it's satwik or non-satwik. So within the constraints of prarabdha, we still have a certain degree of freedom of choice. Moreover, though everything that happens is according to prarabdha, that is the truth that Bhagavan has told us. That is in the note he wrote for his mother. He says, "Endrum naduvadadu, envichikunum naduvadu." What will never happen will not happen, however much effort we make. Nadapadu, entadeseinum niladu. What is to happen will not stop, however much obstacle we make. Iduve tinnam. This is certain. Ahlim monume irike nandru. Therefore, being silent is good. So Bhagavan was very, very emphatic. We cannot change what is destined to happen, even an iota. But though that is the case, it seems to us that we have a freedom of choice, and according to what we choose, things happen. So it seems to us that we have a certain degree of control over what we experience. It is not actually the case, but it seems to be the case. So long as it seems to be the case, so long as we seem to be free to choose whether to eat satwik food or non-satwik food, we should make the choice to eat satwik food. So we shouldn't, it is misusing Bhagavan's teachings. If we were to say, oh, everything happens according to prarabdha, so whatever I do is according to prarabdha. So if I eat non-satwik food, that's because it's my prarabdha. If I go and rob the bank, it's because it's my prarabdha. If I cause suffering to other people, that's my prarabdha. That is a complete misinterpretation, because that's overlooking the fact of the role that our will also plays in our actions. So since we don't know what our prarabdha is, and we don't know which actions we do are according to prarabdha and which are according to our will, so long as we rise as ego, we have this sense of doership. So we should so long as we are acting, we should act wisely. To the extent possible. If it is our destiny we can try to eat only satwik food in moderate quantities. We can try our best. We should try our best, according to what Bhagavan has taught us. But if it is our destiny to eat non-satwik food or to overeat or undereat or something, we cannot avoid it. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to avoid it. We should try to avoid doing bad actions. If we end up doing bad actions, that maybe it's according to prarabdha, but we shouldn't. We cannot use prarabdha as a license to do whatever we want to do. We are not able to know what is prarabdha, what is not prarabdha, and we seem to have the freedom of choice. We seem to be able to choose. Today, am I going to eat? What meal am I going to eat? Am I going to eat bread, or am I going to eat rice, or am I going to eat pasta, or am I going to just eat vegetables, or whatever? It seems to us we have a choice. We go to the kitchen, we look in the fridge or the larder or whatever, we see what food's available, we make a choice. It seems to us that it's we who are making the choice. Actually, things do happen according to prarabdha. So if we are destined to enjoy, to eat rice today, we will eat only rice. But so long as we seem to have this freedom of choice, we should, as far as ethical things and things like choosing the quality of the food we eat, that means whether it's satwik or non-satwik, we seem to have that choice. So we should choose appropriately. I hope that adequately answers your question, Sanjay.
Yes, sir, more or less, because this is a very topic which may be beyond my control. I may like to eat it, but sattvic food is not available in my house, so I have to eat whatever is available. So that way, the choice seems to be limited. But as you rightly say, that we seem to have a choice, but we do not really have a choice. That's a question I was trying to say.
Yes, but so long as we seem to have a choice, we should choose appropriately.
Yes, yes.
And to say that it's not in our freedom to eat sattvic food, generally, particularly those of us who are either living in wealthier countries or living or belong to a more wealthy class within a poorer country, we do have freedom. There are shops with abundant, we have far more choice of food nowadays than was ever available in the past. So since we have this choice, we have no excuse for saying, oh, I can't eat sattvic food.
Agreed.
So wherever we live in the world, even if in the past, if you were living in Lapland or somewhere where the Eskimos, Sami people live, they can't grow vegetables because of the frozen conditions. So they have no choice but to eat, to live on fish and other non-vegetarian food. But nowadays, I'm sure even in such places, they have supermarkets. So the choice is there. If we want to, almost anywhere in the world, we do have a freedom to choose for more sattvic food.
Agreed, sir.
So we shouldn't use it as an excuse, but, oh, I'm not able to, I don't have the choice. We do have, it seems to us we have the choice, so we should choose appropriately.
I was just sharing my weakness because I like to eat sattvic food, but most of the days I end up eating non-sattvic food. So I was just sharing my inner weakness with you.
Right. This is a problem with our vasanas.
Yes.
The whole of the spiritual path is a fight between, we are trying to eradicate our vasanas, but first we need to eradicate the more harmful vasanas. So if we have a liking to overeat, or we have a liking for junk food, or for any food that we know is not sattvic, or is not, or we not in mita, moderate quantities, we have to overcome such vasanas. Because if we can't overcome such vasanas, how are we going to overcome the vasanas that are constantly drawing our mind outwards? In the spiritual path, we are trying to turn our mind inwards. When we try to turn our mind inwards, all our outgoing vasanas, both the good and the bad ones, all try to drag our mind out. our task is to conquer all these vasanas by clinging firmly to self-attentiveness. But if we can't even, if we don't even have a strong enough liking to avoid non-sattvic food, how are we ever going to avoid the liking to be constantly going outwards?
Agreed, sir. Agreed.
So if we take this spiritual path seriously, we have to constantly keep a curb on our vasanas.
Definitely, sir. Agreed. I have to try. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bala Nagaraju, you've got you're the first one to have your hand raised. So do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, Mr. Guruji, this is Bala Nagaraju from India.
Yes.
Actually, I would like to ask you one question regarding the Bhagavan words. Bhagavan said, "You are that only. You are that means yourself, right?"
Yes.
How to recognize the self myself? How to recognize the self myself? I can feel this body. I can touch my shirt. I can touch my hand. I can touch my stomach. Everything I can touch. Okay, I'm feeling this body as a physical thing. But how can I feel myself as a self? Because Bhagavan said you are already that.
Yes. Just observe what you are saying. I can see this body. I can touch this body. In every one of those sentences, I was there. That I is
Yes.
When we say, I am aware of this body, the body is an object of that we're aware of. We are the one who is aware of it. So we need to separate ourselves from all objects. That is, there is never as Bhagavan said, what is real is only our fundamental awareness of our own existence. That's a sat-cit, I am. And we are always aware of ourselves as I am. This awareness, I am Bala Nagaraju. Bala Nagaraju is an adjunct, an upadhi. So we need to separate ourselves from all the upadhis. Bhagavan says in Upadēśa Undiyār, in verse 25, I think, seeing oneself without adjuncts is seeing God, because God shines with oneself. So what we actually are is I am without any adjuncts. So long as we experience I am mixed with adjuncts, as I am this body, I am Bala, or whatever, that is ego. So even when we rise as ego, we are still aware of ourselves as I am. So there is
how to aware ourselves as a self? How to aware ourselves as a self? I mean, out of consciousness.
When we say the self, it's a rather misleading term, because the self sounds like it's something other than ourselves. We have to know ourselves as we actually are. What we actually are is I am. Just the plain I am.
Mr. Guruji, can you speak slowly, because I am unable to understand the accent of that you are from India.
Okay.
Because our accent is somewhat different to.
Okay, right. Sorry. We are always aware of ourselves as I am. That fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am, that is what you refer to as the self. That is our real nature. So there is never a moment when we are not aware of ourselves. But instead of being aware of ourselves as just I am, we're aware of ourselves as I am Bala, or I am Michael. It's that adjunct which is what is obscuring the pure awareness. So we have to see ourselves without the adjuncts. How to see ourselves without adjuncts? So long as we are looking outwards, we are seeing ourselves mixed with adjuncts. When we turn our attention back within to attend only to ourselves, then we see ourselves without adjuncts. That is the pure awareness. Now, because
while doing meditation and while chanting about Bhagavan, everything, thoughts are coming rapidly into my mind. I'm not going into my inside of my self, but I always my mind is going outside. How to control this and how to make myself without any thoughts, empty mind, idle mind. That's I want.
Why are all these thoughts aren't just coming to your mind? It is you who are thinking these thoughts. You're thinking about things other than yourself. Why are you thinking about things other than yourself? Because you're interested in those things. So,
and one more thing, Mr. Guruji, actually the two thoughts are coming. One thought is, if the thoughts are coming, automatically again one more thought is coming, says that, hey, the thought is unwanted thought. You should not touch that. You should not aware always of that. You should not keep the thought away. And after second mind is saying, then you feel the two minds are there, right? If first thought is coming, if any thought, outside thought is coming, automatically one more thought is coming, says that, hey, the first thought is very bad thought and unwanted thought. It's against to Bhagavan's words. So you should put the thought away. Who said the second thought? What about that one? Who said? Then we can feel that two thoughts are coming, right?
Okay, there may be two thoughts, but the one who is thinking those thoughts, who is aware of those thoughts? You are the one.
Myself.
You are the one who is aware of them. So you are one. So don't. Your aim is not to think about the thoughts, but to think about yourself. What I was explaining is the reason why so many thoughts come is thoughts are concerning things other than ourselves. Why do we think about things other than ourselves? Because we have interest in those things. So it is because of our likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, and so on, that all these problems arise. If we
then how to away those dislikes and likes and how to put it away?
Okay, that is what Bhagavan has taught us. It is by persistent attempts to be self-attentive. However many times our mind slips outwards, we need to draw it back within. By patient and persistent practice, slowly, we will weaken the Vishaya vasana, the inclination to go outwards, and strengthen the sat vasana, the liking just to be as we are. So it is only by persistent practice of self-investigation, as taught by Bhagavan, but we can overcome all these Vishaya vasanas, the likings to go outwards. So
okay.
No one can, Bhagavan often said, no one can succeed in this path without persistent effort.
And Bhagavan said two more ways. One is second one is surrender.
Yes.
Right? Mr. Guruji, right? Bhagavan said that there are two ways. One is self-investigation and second one is surrender.
Yes.
Most of the people would like to go in surrender only because self-investigation is very, very tough and to do like that. Because I would like to go with because I would like to go always. Sorry?
Is surrender easy?
Sorry?
Is surrender easy?
Yes, I am also saying that. Exactly, I am also saying that. I would like to go self-investigation only, but I am trying more of that again, and by daily practices I am like that, but I am failing every time, again and again.
Though
my mind is not concentrating, your thoughts are coming and sorry.
Though Bhagavan said there are two ways: investigate yourself or surrender yourself. He also made it clear that ultimately these are one and the same. It's one and the same practice. That is, surrender begins with surrendering our likes and dislikes, surrendering our will to the will of God. That we can do without self-investigation. By bhakti, we can slowly train ourselves to submit ourselves to the will of God, to give up our likes and dislikes and accept whatever happens according as being God's will and for our good. So in that way, we can partially surrender without self-investigation. But ultimately, we cannot surrender. So long as we rise as ego, we will always have, to a greater or lesser extent, likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, and so on. So we can surrender our will only to a certain extent. In order to surrender our will completely, we need to surrender ego, whose will it is. So ego is the root. So long as there's an ego, it will have likes and dislikes. It can, to some extent, we can surrender our likes and dislikes, and we can surrender our will to God. But that surrender of our will to God can be complete only when we surrender ourselves to God. And how to surrender ourselves to God? Bhagavan has said the only way to surrender ourselves to God is by investigating ourselves, because the nature of ego, so long as we allow our attention to go outwards, we are nourishing and sustaining ego. Only when we turn our attention within will ego subside. So surrender can become complete only by self-investigation. That's why in the 13th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, Bhagavan says, being Atmanishtaparan, one who's firmly established as oneself, giving not even the slightest room for the rising of any thought other than Atma-chintana. Now, Atma-chintana means self-attentiveness. That is giving oneself to God. So in other words, ultimately we can give ourselves to God. We can surrender ourselves completely only by means of self-investigation. So ultimately the two paths are one. And from the beginning, we have to practice the two hand in hand, because we can turn our attention within only to the extent that we're willing to let go of other things. Why you say your mind keeps on, thoughts keep coming to your mind, you say. That means your mind keeps on going out. Why does your mind keep on going outwards? Because of your desires and attachments to other things. So you first have to surrender that desire and attachment before you can go within. So we cannot investigate ourselves without surrendering ourselves, and our surrender cannot go very deep without self-investigation. So the two go hand in hand, and ultimately they're not two, they're one.
Okay, Mr. Guruji. Okay, thank you.
So I'll now answer another question from an email, and after that it'll probably be time for our break, but we'll see how it goes. The next question I got by email is Bala, do you mind muting your microphone just so there's no background noise?
Yes, sure.
The next email is from Kiran. What he wrote is, would you be able to talk about the screen of consciousness as explained by Bhagavan in detail? I know you have touched on this topic in the past, but it would be really helpful if you could talk in detail about this. I see that Shankara described the same in Dakshinamurti Stotram, verse 1, as the world is like a city seen in a mirror. In relation to this, my understanding is that our prarabdha already determines what is projected on the screen, meaning what we see. Since dreams are also projected on the same screen, is that projection also destined? Okay, I'll answer these first, and then I'll come to your third question, which is on a different topic. That is, the screen of consciousness. We can understand this in that is the ultimate screen, the ultimate base of all things, from the base from which all things arise and in which all things appear. That is the pure awareness I am. That pure awareness I am is what Bhagavan sometimes described as a screen of consciousness. That is, whatever we may be aware of, we're aware of it because I am. I am aware of this. I am seeing this. I am hearing this. So I am thinking this. I am feeling this. I am is at the center of every experience. So whatever phenomena appear in our awareness, who is aware of it? I am aware of it. So the background, the screen on which all phenomena appear is that fundamental awareness I am. However, when we remain just as I am, nothing appears on the screen. It is only when we rise as ego and are aware of ourselves as I am this body, but we're aware of other things. So the screen on which all things appear is, though the ultimate screen is the pure awareness, the screen on which all phenomena appear is not the pure awareness, but the chitabhasa, the reflection, the semblance of awareness called mind or ego. That is, it's only as ego, but we are aware of other things. So we can also take the screen of consciousness to mean this ego. It's only on the screen of mind. It's only on the screen of mind, but all phenomena appear. But on what screen does this mind appear? That is the ultimate screen. So the ultimate base of everything is the pure awareness, I am, what we actually are. But that is the ultimate base or ultimate screen, ultimate background. But there's an intervening background, which is mind or ego. It's only in the view of mind or ego that all other things appear. So depending on the context, we can interpret that screen as referring to the pure awareness or as referring to ego. In the first verse of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, what Bhagavan says is, Nam Ullahum Kandalal, Nāṇ Ār Shakti Ulla, or Mudale, Oppal Orutalaye. That means because we see the world, accepting one fundamental that has a power that becomes many is certainly the one best option. And then he says in the second sentence, Nama Uru Chittiramum, Papanam, Serpadamum, Olium, Ateneum, Āṇ Ār. That means the picture of name and forms, the one who sees, the cohesive screen, and the pervading light, all these are he who is oneself. He is here referring to the one, what he referred to in the previous sentence as the All-Mudal, the one fundamental, the one fundamental reality, that is the pure awareness I am. All these, whatever appears within I am, in substance is nothing other than I am. Just like there are many ornaments made of gold. There are rings and there are necklaces and there are crowns and there are all sorts of ornaments you can make of gold. In form, they are different. In substance, they are one. So the one substance that appears as this picture of names and forms, as the ego who sees this picture, as the screen and as the light, all these are only that one substance, that pure awareness, the one fundamental. So we can take it here, the picture of names and forms obviously means all phenomena. The one who sees is obviously ego. The cohesive screen, we can take it here to mean the mind, which is the background on which all this appears. That is only in the mind that all phenomena appear. And the pervading light, we can take that to mean the mind is as a reflected light of awareness, which illumines this whole appearance. But in substance, all these are he. That means the one original thing, the pure awareness I am. That is the original light. So when we talk about the screen of awareness, or the light that illumines the pictures on the screen, we can either, in an ultimate sense, it is the pure awareness I am. In a more immediate sense, it is the mind, the semblance of awareness, the false awareness, I am this body. It's only on the background of this false awareness, I am this body, where all other things appear. Because it's only when we rise as ego and thereby are aware of ourselves as I am this body, but we are consequently aware of other forms. That is, as Bhagavan says in the fourth verse of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, Uruvam tan ayin, Ulahu paramatram. That is, if oneself is a form, the world and God will be likewise. Uruvam tan andrel, Uvatrin uruvate, kan urudal yavan eban. Yes, yavan. That means if oneself is not a form, who can see their forms and how? Kannalal kakshiyondo. That means can the I, the seer, can the kakshi, can what is seen be of a different nature to the eye that sees it? That what that means is when we take ourselves to be a form, we see other forms. When we experience ourselves as a formless pure awareness, we experience only formless pure awareness. Then in the final sentence he says, kan adutan antamila kan. That means the I is oneself. Here I means EYE. The I he's using this as a metaphor for awareness. The I is oneself, the infinite I. So what he implies here is that our real nature, what we actually are, is the infinite awareness. What is infinite is formless, because all forms are finite. Every form has a limit. So what the infinite awareness, but we actually are, that is formless. But so in the view of our real nature, there are no forms. But only when we rise as ego and project and identify ourselves with the form of a body, we consequently see other forms. So in that sense, I say the immediate screen is this false awareness, I am this body, with its own, the background of all that we experience, or all when we experience any forms, any phenomena. Who is experiencing this? I, who am aware of myself as I am this body, I am experiencing it. So this I am a body awareness, this Dehatma Buddhi, this is the basis on which all other forms appear. So in one sense, we can take this ego to be the screen. But obviously the ego is not the ultimate base, because ego itself appears and disappears. As Bhagavan explains very beautifully in verse 7 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he says, here he uses the word arivu. Arivu means awareness, but he's using arivu here not to mean, not in the sense of pure awareness, but in the sense of awareness that is aware of the world, in other words, the mind. So he says, Uluhu arivum ondrai uditu adongum enum, Uluhu arivu tannal olirum. That means, though the world and awareness rise and subside simultaneously, the world shines by awareness. As I say, here in this context, awareness means the awareness that is aware of the world, in other words, the ego or the mind. So though the world and the mind arise and subside simultaneously, the world shines by the mind. That is, it's only the mind that is aware of all other things. The world is not aware of the mind is aware of the world. So it is the mind that illumines the world, the mind which enables the world to be known. Because the world doesn't exist independent of the mind or ego that perceives it. And then in the next sentence he says, Uluhu arivu tondri maribadaku idanai, tondri marayadu olirum akde pundram am porul. Sorry, that was I rearranged the words in a normal sentence order. The order in which it comes in the verse is Uluhu arivu tondri maribadaku idanai, tondri marayadu olirum pundram am akde porul. That means only that which shines without appearing or disappearing as the base for the appearing and disappearing of the world and awareness is the substance, is the porul. Porul means substance, like it's a Tamil word, but it's similar in meaning to vastu. That is the ultimate substance, the thing that everything is made of, the ultimate substance. So, which is the whole, pundramam porul, the substance which is the whole. So the ultimate base, the base from which both the mind and the world appear, but which shines without itself ever appearing or disappearing. That is the pure awareness I am. It neither appears nor disappears. I mean, it appears here means in the sense of appearing afresh, because the one thing that is always shining is I am. Whether the ego and the world, or ego and phenomena, whether they appear or whether they disappear, that fundamental awareness I am is always shining. That is the one thing we're aware of in all three states, in waking, dream, and sleep, is I am. In waking, we're aware of, in both waking and dream, we're aware of I am and all these phenomena. We're aware of I am and ego and all the phenomena perceived by ego. Whereas in sleep, we're aware only of I am and nothing but I am. So the ultimate base or ultimate screen is that pure awareness I am. But the immediate screen, the is mind or ego. So I hope that answers that part of the question. As I said, the next part is, my understanding is that our prarabdha already determines what is projected on the screen, meaning what we see. Since dreams are also projected on the same screen, is that projection also destined? Yes, absolutely. Whatever we experience, it is all what is destined to happen. So just like our whole life is a dream. Within this dream, we have other dreams. When that is, when at night when we go to bed, we have other dreams. So these are the other dreams are dreams within a dream. All are governed by one prarabdha. I mean, for the whole of our life, we can take as one prarabdha, or we can also see that there's a sub prarabdha for each dream. That each dream is determined, but just like every day of our life is determined, every experience is determined. So ultimately, it's all just one prarabdha for the whole life. Then in the third and final question you asked is, in relation to the same, if you could explain what happened on the day when Bhagavan's mother attained liberation. I believe Bhagavan said to Kunjaswami, when Bhagavan's hands were over the mother's heart and head, that mother is not in this world, but in different worlds experiencing the pending karma. Could you talk about this topic in detail, Michael? That is, we cannot know. We cannot know exactly what happened to Bhagavan's mother. It is said that just like you cannot trace the path through which birds fly in the sky, or through fish swim in water, we cannot trace the path by which jnani has reached their goal. So Bhagavan's mother, though she had her desires and attachments and everything, she must have been a very pure soul to have had the great privilege of being the mother of Bhagavan, to conceived him and bore him in her womb. She must have, I don't even want to say punya, because it can't be punya. She must have been a very pure soul to have had that good fortune. So, but nevertheless, she still had her desires and attachments. She was very attached to her orthodox ways and everything. So when she was living with Bhagavan, when she eventually came to live with Bhagavan on the hill, he would often tease her. If, for example, if someone had brought onions or garlic and they were being cut and put in the food, Bhagavan would say to his mother, "Oh, don't touch that, don't touch that. If you touch that, moksha will go away." He was trying to wean her off these strong attachments she had to certain orthodox ways. This was all the way Bhagavan's grace was working. But eventually, when the time came for her to leave the body, yes, Bhagavan sat by her and he put one hand on her head and another hand on her heart. What happened is beyond our mind. We cannot know, because Bhagavan was dealing with the vasanas at the deepest level. And when I believe I've also read somewhere that it's reported Bhagavan said, but she's not in this world, but in different worlds. What is a world? A world is just a mental projection. So other worlds means like in dream worlds. She had certain experiences she had to go through for some reason. We don't know why. She had to go through those experiences in order to finally be willing to give up all her desires and attachments and surrender herself completely to Bhagavan. So she was in something like a dream state at that time. People often, when they're nearing death, like when we're at night time, sometimes when we're sleepy, we are neither in the waking state nor in a dream state. We're somewhere in between. That is, we're still aware of this waking world, but dream images keep on coming. So it would have been a state similar to that. She was passing through dreamlike experiences. for some reason, we don't know why, but Bhagavan was obviously churning up the vasanas in order to give her the option to let go. That is, sometimes people ask Bhagavan, when I'm meditating, so many thoughts arise. Bhagavan said, whatever is inside has to come out. If it doesn't come out, how can we give it up? That is, whatever thoughts arise in our mind, they are the sprouting of vasanas. When a thought arises in our mind, we have a choice. Either we can follow that thought, or we can turn our attention back towards ourselves. If we follow the thought, that will lead to another thought, it goes on. If instead we turn our attention back to ourselves, we are thereby weakening the vasana that gave rise to that thought. So the more we practice self-investigation, the more we practice turning our attention back towards ourselves, the more our Vishaya vasanas are thereby weakened. And the more our Vishaya vasanas are thereby weakened, correspondingly our sat vasana, our liking just to be, that vasana is strengthened. So this is how the mind is purified, how we overcome our Vishaya vasanas and eventually become willing to surrender ourselves completely. So how grace is working in this process, we cannot understand the workings of grace. But one thing Bhagavan often said is, grace is the beginning, the middle, and the end. That it is grace that draws us, it is grace that has brought us to Bhagavan's path, but has attracted us to his path. It is a grace that motivates us to follow this path. And eventually it is grace that will swallow us. So it was what was happening to Bhagavan's mother at that time was all the working of grace. And as Bhagavan says in the first verse of Aruṇācala Aṣṭakam, Ari Varu Giriyena Varu Daru Mamma Adi Sayam Idam Sail Ari Vari Darkam. That is that is what that means. It stands as if it's an sentient hill, but its action is beyond understanding, beyond comprehension. The action he's referring to there is the action of grace. How grace works, we cannot know. We cannot comprehend the working of grace, because grace is nothing but the love that Bhagavan has for us, as Bhagavan doesn't see us as anything other than himself. So why Bhagavan loved all equally? Bhagavan loved both the good and the bad, the high and the low, even the humblest of creatures. He cared for, he had equal love for all. When he just accidentally disturbed the hornet's nest, he had so much love for those hornets, but he allowed them to sting his leg, because he didn't see those hornets as other than himself. He saw them as himself. So Bhagavan loves all as himself. So what we call grace is nothing but the working of his love. So how can we possibly comprehend that by our mind? So it's nice to hear the stories about Bhagavan's life, but I don't know if anyone correctly understood Bhagavan. There may have been a few like Murugana who understood Bhagavan more deeply, certainly than others, but the ultimate truth is only Bhagavan can understand Bhagavan. If we want to understand Bhagavan, we have to surrender ourselves completely to him. As he says, Uṇādal Khan, in verse 21 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, becoming food is seeing. That is, only when he swallows us can we really see him, can we really know, understand him, understand his love, understand his grace. And well, his love, his grace, and he are all one. There's no multiplicity there. We can know him only by being him. And in order to be him, we have to surrender ourselves completely. So trying to use our intellect or our little mind to understand what was happening to his mother at that time, we can say it in just one word: grace. Grace was happening. Bhagavan's Arul. That was what's happening. But that same Arul that was working in Bhagavan's mother at that time is working within each of us at each and every moment of our life. Bhagavan is preparing us at each and every moment of our life, bringing us closer to the goal, bringing us closer to the point where we are willing to surrender to him and he will swallow us. So as he said, grace is the beginning, the middle and the end. That's all we can say. Before the break, I was answering the question of Kiran. I remembered the question was the one about the screen of consciousness. I remembered after saying it, but there was another verse I wanted to discuss in this context, a very relevant verse in this context, which is verse 6 of Aruṇācala Aṣṭakam. In this verse, what Bhagavan this is the verse in which Bhagavan explains how the world is projected. In the first sentence, he says, "Undoru porol arivu oli ulameni." That means there is only one substance, you, the heart, the light of awareness. And in the next sentence, he says, "Uḷḷadu Unnil aladu ila Adiseya Shakti." In you exists an extraordinary power, which is not other than you. And then in the next sentence, this is quite a difficult sentence that is, Bhagavan has packed a lot of meaning into relatively few words. But what he says is, Nindru anu nihal nire ninevu ari vode nihilvine karalil an ninevu oli adi kandana nihil jaga vichitarum ullum kan mudal pori vari puratum or sillal nindridum nihilpada niha. What that means is appearing from that. That means appearing from that extraordinary power that exists in you and is not other than you. Incidentally, that extraordinary power is what he refers to the same extraordinary power in the first two sentences or the first sentence of the fourth paragraph of Nāṉ Ār. What he says there is manam embadu atmasvarupatil or adiseya shakti. That is, the mind is an adiseya shakti, extraordinary, wonderful power in atmasvarupa. That means in our real nature. That is what our real nature is what he's describing in the first sentence of this verse as there is only one substance, you, the heart, the light of awareness. And in the second sentence of this verse, he says, in you exists an extraordinary power which is not other than you. So in this sentence of Nāṉ Ār, he indicates that extraordinary power is what is called mind. It's also in some contexts called Maya, but Maya is nothing but the mind. And then in the next sentence of the paragraphing of the fourth paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, he says, "Adu sakala ninevu galayum totru vikindradu." That means it causes, it is here referring to the mind, it causes all thoughts to appear. So the mind or ego is an extraordinary power that causes all thoughts to appear. So coming back to the verse again, in the third sentence, he says appearing from that means that appearing from that extraordinary power, the mind, along with awareness. The awareness here is the reflected light of awareness that illumines all phenomena. The reflected light of awareness is itself the mind, Adiseya Shakti. Series of subtle shadowy thoughts spinning in the whirl of destiny are seen on the mirror that is the mind light as a shadowy world picture, both inside and outside, via senses such as the eyes, like a shadow picture that stands out or is projected on by a lens. So here, Bhagavan, that analogy, like a shadow picture that stands out by a lens, he's referring to the cinema analogy. Just like the picture on a cinema screen is projected from a projector through, that the light shines through a film and the images on the film get projected on the screen. Likewise, the whole of this world appearance, which appears on them. Here he clearly says, the mirror that is the mind light. So the mirror that Shankara refers to in Dakshinamurti verse 1 that you mentioned in your question, that is that mirror is the mind, the reflected light of awareness in which all this appears. And so just like in a cinema projector, it is the images on the film reel are projected onto the screen. But in the case of the appearance of the world, the series of shadowy thoughts, that means that he's here referring to the subtle thoughts in their subtlest form, which is as vasanas, they are projected outwards as this shadowy world picture, both inside and outside. That is, in our view, there are two different worlds, so to speak. There's the external world, which we and all others, or it seems to us that we and so many other people are seeing this external world, but there's also an internal world, a world of our own thoughts and feelings and emotions and everything. So both the external world and the internal world are nothing but a projection of these subtle shadowy thoughts or vasanas. So as I say, here he clarifies, he says seen on the mirror, that is the mind light. So the mirror here is equivalent to the screen. So the screen on which all this, both the internal world of thoughts and feelings and the external world of physical phenomena, all these appear only on the mirror of the mind light. So that is the screen he's referring to. And then in the last sentence of this verse, he says, Arul Kundre, Mindrida Sendrida Ninevida Vindre. That means, Arul Kundre means hill of grace. He's addressing Aruṇācala as hill of grace. Nindrida Sendrida, let them cease or let them go on. Ninevida Vindre, they do not exist apart from you. That is, this is a very important sentence here. Bhagavan, for example, in the 6th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, Bhagavan says, I mean, however many thoughts arise, so what? That implies, what does it matter however many thoughts arise? That is, so long as we are concerned about thoughts or about the appearance of the world, our attention is going away from ourselves. When we are practicing self-investigation, we shouldn't be concerned whether thoughts appear or not. Our only concern should be to attend to ourselves. If we attend to ourselves keenly enough, thoughts will not rise. If thoughts appear, that means our attention has gone away from ourselves. But what do? We don't, oh no, thoughts have come. If we think like that, we are allowing ourselves to be carried away by thoughts. As soon as we become aware of the rising of thoughts, to whom does it rise? To me. Bring our attention back to ourselves. So that's why Bhagavan says, let them cease or let them go on. We shouldn't be at all concerned about this world appearance or about the appearance of thoughts in our mind, because none of these exist apart from you. The implication is we should cling only to you. You here means referring to Aruṇācala, which is ever shining in our heart as I. If we cling firmly to I, we need not be concerned about other things, whether they appear or not appear. It should be no concern about it. So long as we are concerned about the appearance or disappearance of other things, or thoughts are appearing, how can I get rid of thoughts? We are allowing ourselves to become a prey to those thoughts. We shouldn't even think about thoughts. We shouldn't give any room for the rising of thoughts or any concern about thoughts. We should be so intent on attending to ourselves. So, Kiran, I hope that additional explanation also was helpful.
It's the most elaborate explanation, Michael. Thank you so much.
Then, okay, Rajat, you've got your hand raised. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, Michael. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah, I've put my question in the chat. I'll just read it out. My question is, so I find myself helpless dealing with my thoughts, desires, and fears. And the more I try to deal with them, the worse it seems to become. Could you please explain why every approach other than vichara is ineffective in dealing with thoughts, and why and how vichara alone can help, especially the tool of investigating to whom, to me, who am I, how it can be applied to restore the mind to self-attention. And also, when Bhagavan says to whom, does he mean in whose awareness?
Yes, to whom means to whom, in whose view do all these things appear. That is, whatever thoughts or feelings appear, they appear to whom? They appear only to us. So we are the one who are aware of them. In self-investigation, we shouldn't be concerned about thoughts at all. As Bhagavan said, Kundre nindrida sendrida ninevida vindre. That is, let them appear or let them not appear. They're not apart from you. So we should be completely indifferent to thoughts. Why Atma-vichara is able to deal with thoughts in a way but no other means can. In other means, thoughts are a problem. In Atma-vichara, thoughts are not a problem at all. We shouldn't even be concerned about thoughts. Let them appear or let them not appear. Our only interest is to attend to ourselves. Supposing you're reading a very interesting book. There may be noise going on around you. There may be all sorts of things happening. But if you're really interested in reading your book, you're least bothered. Let them make any amount of noise, because your attention is wholly on your book. If you're bothered by the noise that's going on around, that means you're not sufficiently interested in the book. If you were really interested in the book, you wouldn't even notice the noise going on around. You would be only reading your book. So likewise, in self-investigation, we should be only concerned with knowing who am I, with turning our attention back to ourselves to try to see what we actually are. If we are so interested in knowing what we actually are, we will not be concerned about thoughts. And if we're not concerned about thoughts, they won't appear, because thoughts cannot appear without us attending to them. They may try to appear, but if we hold on tightly to self-attentiveness, they will disappear. So the only way to deal with thoughts is not to worry about them. It is the nature of the mind to think. Let it think. That's not our concern. Our concern is to attend to ourselves. Let the mind do whatever mischief it likes. Nature of the mind is to be mischievous. Let it carry on. We should be unmindful of the mind. We should attend only to ourselves. If we have so much interest in attending to ourselves, then no thoughts will rise. Thoughts rise only because we allow our interest to go away from. Instead of reading our book, we're allowing ourselves to be distracted by other things. That means we're not really sufficiently interested in our book. If we're really interested in the book, we won't be bothered about whatever else is happening. Likewise, if we're really interested in attending to ourselves and knowing what we are, we will not be bothered about other things. However, we still have desires and attachments. So we are interested in other things. We care and are concerned about things other than ourselves. So long as we are, our attention will keep on slipping away from ourselves towards other things. But we need not worry about that. As Bhagavan says, whenever any thought appears, investigate to whom does it appear? To me. Who am I? Though he said it as, though he expressed it in terms of questions, he didn't literally mean that we have to wait for the next thought to come to appear so that we can ask to whom does it appear. What he means is he's giving us a clue to how to turn our attention back towards ourselves. That is, whatever thought may appear, whatever phenomena may appear, whatever may distract our attention away from ourselves. How are we aware of that? We're aware of it because I am. It is I who am aware of it. So who am I? We need to have so much interest in knowing what we are. If we have so much interest in knowing what we are, we'll turn our attention away from that back towards ourselves. So Bhagavan is giving us a clue there to help us turn our attention back towards ourselves. That is, whatever may happen. So all sorts of experiences come. Sometimes we're in great pain, or sometimes so many experiences may be there. whatever experience may be there, who is experiencing it? I am. So who am I? Because if we hadn't risen as ego, we couldn't be aware of any of these things. So in order to cease rising as ego, we need to turn our attention back towards ourselves. Does that adequately answer your question, or was there any more to it? Are you?
No, it does, Michael. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Ashwin, before answering your question, I'll answer one more question in the this that I received by email. The next question is from Bernard. What he has written is, when I hear you discussing the concept of I am struck by the similarity to the Hebrew Bible, where God, when asked by Moses who he is in the encounter of the burning bush, Exodus 3:14, answers, I am that I am. He adds, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. There are also other translations that say it means I am who I am, I will be what I will be, I create whatever I create, or I am the existing one. To be honest, I feel I sort of understand this, but don't understand Bhagavan's meaning of I am. I'm happy to accept that in the Hebrew version, the question is about who God is really a question about who we are. And God very cleverly answers in an open-ended way, i.e. he doesn't want to be pinned down and limited. I would be grateful if you could expand, especially on what on Bhagavan's meaning of I am. Okay, I'll start with about Bhagavan, and then I'll talk about the Bible. When we say I am, what does I am mean? It means I exist. So I am is a statement of our existence, but it's more than just. It's more than a. It implies more than just I exist. That is, if we say about an object, it exists, we are talking about something other than ourselves. We are able to say about, for example, about a table or a chair or a computer or anything, it exists. Why? Because we are aware of it. But in the case of I, when we say I am, I is the first person pronoun. The first person pronoun is the self-referential pronoun. It's the pronoun that refers to oneself. So when we say I am, it implies that we are aware of our existence. That is, when you say it is about an object, you're not implying that that object is aware of its existence. But when you say I am, it's implicit there, not only that you exist, but that you're aware that you exist. Because if you weren't aware that you exist, you couldn't say I am. You couldn't be aware that I am. So the term I am implies both our existence and our awareness. And according to Bhagavan, existence and awareness are one and the same thing. That is, I am is an expression of our awareness of our existence. And our awareness of our existence is itself our existence, because existence and awareness are not two different things. They're one and the same thing. So in other words, what Bhagavan means by I am is sat-cit, being awareness, existence awareness. And since existence and awareness are in their pure form, when existence and awareness remain in their pure form, that is Ananda, so sat-cit Ananda. So ultimately, I am denotes sat-cit Ananda. That is the nature of I am. But true awareness of ourself is awareness of ourself just as I am. But now we are always aware of ourselves as I am, but now we are not only aware of ourselves as I am, we're aware of ourselves as I am Bernard, I am Michael, I am John or Mary or Ram or Sita or whatever. We have an identification. We identify with a name. That name is the name of a particular form, the form of a body. So we are not experiencing I am in its pure form. We are experiencing I am mixed with adjuncts. That mixed awareness, I am this, that is ego. It's important to note that when we say a sentence such as I am this, the am there has a different function to the function of am in the sentence I am. In the sentence I am there just denotes our existence. I exist. But when I say I am this, I am Michael, I am Bernard, am is there not denoting our existence, but our identity. When you say I am Bernard, that means I is identifying itself with Bernard. So the am there is an expression of your identity. It may not be, it's not your true identity, but it's an expression of your identity. Whereas am when we just say I am, that is just an expression not of our identity, but of our existence. We need not actually state any identity because we just are. However, Bhagavan sometimes in several verses, such as Upadēśa Undiyār verse 20, Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu verse 30, and the second verse of Āṉma-Viddai, he uses the term in Tamil, Nāṉ Ār, which means I am I. That is the context in which he uses that. I'll just read those verses. In verse 20 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he says, that is, in verse 19, he talks about when one investigates within the mind, what is the place from which, what the place is from which one rises as I will die. This is Āṇma-Vichara. Then he goes on because there he mentioned the I dying. In the next verse, verse 20, he says, Nāṇ Ār. That means in the place where I subside or I merges, Nāṇ Ondru Adu Tāna Tondrum. Tan Adu Pundramam. That means in the place where I merges, that the one appears spontaneously as I am I. That itself is the whole. And in Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu verse 30, it's very similar. What he says in verse 30 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu is, Nāṉ Ār ena manam ulnadi ullum nannave Nāṇ avan tale nānum ura Nāṇ Ār tondrum ondru tānaha. That means as soon as the mind reaches the heart, inwardly investigating who am I, when he who is I dies, that means when ego dies, one thing appears spontaneously as I am I. And then in the next sentence he says, Tondrinum Nāṇ. That means though it appears, it is not I. What he means by this is, though it appears, it is not ego. Because the ego is the I that appears and disappears is ego. Porul Pundram Adu, Tan Am Porul. That means it is the entire substance, the substance that is oneself. He says that it appears, the one thing that he's referring to here is our real nature, the pure awareness. He says that it appears, not that it's what is ever shining, but it is seemingly concealed now, because instead of being aware of ourselves just as I am, we're aware of ourselves as I am this, I am Bernard, or I am Michael. So long as we're aware of ourselves as I am Bernard, we're not aware of I am in its pure condition. So when ego, the false awareness, I am Bernard or I am Michael, dies, what was ever present seems to shine forth anew. It doesn't, it's not actually a new appearance, but we suddenly see what we actually are. That's what he refers to as it appearing. And what are we? I am I. This term he uses here, I am I, is a very significant term, because I am I implies as he's when he uses this term Nān, I am I, he's distinguishing ego, which is Nān Idu, I am this, from our real identity. Ego is a false identity because I cannot be anything other than myself. So if I say I am this, I'm identifying with something other than myself. So I am I is an expression of our real identity. What we actually are is nothing other than ourselves. So I am only I and not anything else. So it's a very significant term. And he says more or less the same in the second verse of Āṉma-Viddai. There he says, Una udul iduve nanam ennum ninebu, nana ninebugal se o na enum adana. That means, since the thought, this body composed of flesh, itself is I, alone is the one thread on which all the various thoughts are strung. So that's a since clause. He goes on, nana idomedu, endru ulponal, ninivugal poi, nanan enna, guhe ul tanai tihurum anmanyaname. That means if one goes within investigating what is the place from which I spread, thoughts will cease, and in the cave of one's heart, Atmajnana, that pure self-awareness, will shine spontaneously as I am I. So again, he says, well, what is it in the other two verses, in verse 20 of Upadēśa Undiyār and verse 30 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he says one thing. Here he's a bit more specific. He says, Atmajnana will appear spontaneously as I am I. That is, when we are aware of ourselves as we actually are, we will be aware of ourselves just as I. We will be aware I am nothing other than I. So that is the significance of this term that he often used, I am I. The reason he often referred to the Bible, to the saying in the Bible, I am that I am, because he was interpreting in his view that I am that I am. God is saying, what God is saying there is simply I am I. The sentence in Hebrew is actually a difficult sentence to interpret precisely in other languages, because it consists of three words. The first word means am. I is implied there, but that is when in many languages, even in Tamil, you can say, if you say irukkarein, that means am, but the I is implied in the am. So in some languages, you don't need to specify I when you're using a first person verb. So the I is implied there, not actually stated there. The sentence actually means am that am. The word that is translated as that is what is called, we don't have any exact equivalent in English. It is what is called a relativizer. That is, it's a particle or a word that indicates a relative clause. In English, we mark relative clauses by relative pronouns, like the book which is on the table, which is the relative pronoun, and the on the table, which is on the table, is the relative clause. So it's a relativizer, but there's no actual relative clause here. So it's very difficult to interpret this exactly, which is why different translations have come into existence. The oldest translation is the Greek translation, which, as you say, means I am the existing one. That's how they interpreted it. But how Bhagavan interpreted it, he's just saying, God is saying, I am I, or I am, I am. That's why, as you point out, in the next verse, in that, in the next sentence, God says to Moses, say to the people, I am has sent me to you. So God is identifying himself with that I am, because here I am, when we say I am I, we are not identifying with anything other than ourselves. We're identifying ourselves only with I. So God is identifying himself only with I. And therefore I has sent me. So that I means the pure I, not the I that is mixed with adjuncts, but the I that is aware of itself only as I. That is our real nature. That is God. God is nothing other than what we actually are. And what we actually are is not aware of itself as I am this or I am that. It's aware of itself only as I am I, or I am. I am means I exist. I am I means, what is my identity? My identity is only I. So I'm nothing other than I. So I am and I am I, more or less they mean the same, because I am means I exist. That's a statement of our existence. If you want to know what our identity is what? I am I. I'm nothing other than I. So that is how Bhagavan interpreted this passage, or how Bhagavan understood this passage in the Bible, and why he often referred to it. Because basically, this is when ego is annihilated, we will be aware of ourselves as what? We'll be aware of ourselves only as I, and nothing other than I. So I am I. Does that help to clarify at all this? Bernard, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's absolutely fascinating. And I didn't realize that Bhagavan had actually spoken about that. So I'm fascinated to hear that.
Bhagavan often referred to that. But Bhagavan actually said in the Upanishads, there are 4 statements that are called Mahavakyas. But sometimes they're classified slightly differently, but the usual 4 Mahavakyas is Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am Brahman, Tattvamasi, you are that, Prajnanam Brahman, pure awareness is Brahman, and I am Atman Brahman, this Atma, this self is Brahman. Why these are called Mahavakyas is because they are they are revelations of what we actually are is nothing but Brahman. But Bhagavan said the greatest of all the Mahavakyas is not the Mahavakyas in the Vedas or Upanishads, but the Mahavakya in the Bible, because in what God said in the Bible is a better expression of the truth. When if you say I am Brahman, that implies that you're a Brahman. Why do you use the word Brahman, which is something other than I? Yes, we are Brahman, but what is Brahman? Brahman is nothing other than I. That is the idea. But then why to bring in a name Brahman? People sometimes meditate, I am Brahman. So long as we're meditating, I am Brahman, this little person who is now, this ego that is now identifying itself as this little person, is now trying to convince itself that it is Brahman. So the I in I am Brahman, it's this person, this ego, which is saying, trying to identify itself with Brahman. It's just like I am this is a mistake, I am that is a mistake. But truth is, I am only I, nothing other than I. If we are meditating on I am Brahman, we are thinking of Brahman as something other than ourselves. Our thought is going from this I to that Brahman, I am that. So Bhagavan said the purest expression of the truth is not I am Brahman, but I am I. So the greatest Mahavakya is the Mahavakya in the Bible, which Bhagavan takes as implying I am I. Or I am. It amounts to the same thing. I am nothing but I am. I am referring to our awareness of our own existence. Is there anything else you want to ask on that?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ashwin, you've got your hand raised. Would you like to ask your question now?
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for that answer. That was really helpful, actually, listening to that answer. I just wanted to ask 2 very quick questions because I'm aware of the time, so I don't want to keep you for too long. One is, how do you make the leap from going to meditating, having a set ritual, for example, 10, 20 minutes a day, to eventually making your practice the whole day, for example, just continuously paying attention to that? I find it quite difficult to even to comprehend making that leap, because I can't even manage 20 minutes sometimes. So
in Bhagavan's path, there are no leaps except the final leap when you surrender yourself entirely. It is a gradual process. That is, we are always aware of ourselves. So if we wanted to, we could be aware of ourselves here and now as we actually are. The problem is, though we all say we want to know what we actually are, we are not yet ready to pay the price. In order to know ourselves as we actually are, we need to let go of everything else, because we are aware of things other than ourselves only when we rise as ego. So until we are willing to give up everything, we cannot know ourselves as we actually are. As Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, Ahande undayin anatum undahum. If ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Ahande indrel indruanatum. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ahande yabamam. Ego itself is everything. Therefore, adalal yadu idu endru nadale ovadal yabam en or. Therefore, know that investigating what this is giving up everything. What this is referring to ego. When we investigate what ego is, as he said in the previous verse, Tedin al otum pidicum, if sought, it takes flight. When we investigate we investigate ego, ego will take to flight. And when ego ceases to exist, everything else ceases to exist. Because as he says, if ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. So we need to be willing to give up everything. We are not yet willing to give up everything. That is why we are not, we don't yet know ourselves as we actually are. So we need to become willing. How can we become willing? The most effective way to cultivate the willingness to give up everything else is the practice of self-investigation. Whereas, as I was saying earlier, at every moment in our life, we have a choice. Either we attend to other things or we attend to ourselves. So long as we are attending to other things, we are sustaining our vishaya vasanas, our liking to attend to other things. Every time we turn our attention back to ourselves and try to hold on to self-attentiveness, we are thereby weakening the vishaya vasana. We're weakening that inclination to be aware of other things. So by persistent practice, we slowly need to wean our mind off its liking to attend to things other than ourselves. So there may be people who advertise, get enlightened quick. Come to my meditation retreat within 1 week or 1 weekend, you'll get enlightened. It doesn't work like that. We have been working towards where we are now. We've been gradually working towards to reach this point. We've been gradually working for many lives to slowly maturing to reach this point. We don't know how much further we have to go. It's not actually a distance, because our destination is here and now, what we actually are. But it's a distance in a metaphorical sense, in the sense that we need to shed our desires and attachments. So we don't know how close we are to shedding all our desires and attachments. But we know now, Bhagavan has shown us the direction in which we must travel, that is turning our attention within. So we just have to persevere in this practice of self-investigation and self-surrender. The more we do this, the more our vishaya vasanas, our inclination to be aware of other things, will be weakened, and our sat vasana, our inclination just to be as we actually are, will increase. So it is a gradual process. When you say about switching from meditation, that is taking a leap from just meditation from 20 minutes to trying to meditate continuously. It's not a sudden leap. Actually, Bhagavan never recommended sitting in meditation for fixed periods of time, because we can't actually, unless we have already got very great intense vairagya, that's great with freedom from desire, we cannot meditate on ourselves for 20 minutes unbroken. The nature of the mind is, when we turn our attention back towards ourselves, our very existence as ego is threatened. So we keep on trying to jump out to cling to other things. So in practice, we can't just remain attending to ourselves unbroken for 20 minutes. Our attention keeps on going out and we have to draw it back within. So it is not actually necessary to be sitting. Whatever you're doing, if you're just going for a walk in the park, or going to the shops, or commuting to work, or whatever it is, there's so many times in the day when there's no immediate work for our mind. So we can be taking those opportunities to try to hold on to self-attentiveness. The more we do that, the more familiar we will become with that underlying current of self-awareness. We are always aware of ourselves, but because generally our attention is so outgoing, we overlook that self-awareness. We give no importance to it. But the more we practice, the more we try to hold on to self-attentiveness, the more we become aware of the constant presence of I am, of our fundamental self-awareness. And so a tenuous current of self-awareness begins to pervade through other activities. So at first we try, I'm not saying sitting for 20 minutes is not useful, but we won't actually, in those 20 minutes, we won't be attending to ourselves unbroken for 20 minutes. It'll be a bit of a struggle, and we try. That can be beneficial, because at such times we're free from any other commitments. So we try to, we can focus more on just trying to be self-attentive. But just doing it for 20 minutes morning and evening, that is not sufficient. But we need to be trying throughout the day. As I say, times when our mind is not engaged in any other work are particularly favorable. Times like when we're walking or commuting, or there's so many times or even when you go to the toilet, why not? There's so many times when our mind need not be thinking of other things. If we observe the mind throughout the day, if we're not trying to attend to ourselves, throughout the day we are thinking so many thoughts about so many things, unnecessary things. You're going for a walk in the park. Why should you be thinking about the problems in the office, the problems at home, how you're going to pay your mortgage, whether you're going to have enough money for the rent this month? Why do you think all these things? While you're walking in the park, you can't do anything about these things. So while you're walking in the park, walk in the park. That doesn't mean that we should take that opportunity. Instead of thinking of other things, we can be attending to ourselves. The more we do it in the midst of other activities, we will find that the activities that don't require mind work, we will find that that tenuous current of self-attention can continue even while we are doing work that requires our mind. For example, we may be going to office and we may be having to do some work on the computer. That requires a certain amount of attention. But even while we are doing that work, are we not aware that I am? So we can hold on to that tenuous current of self-awareness even while attending to other things. So this all comes with practice. It all comes naturally with practice.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. That was really excellent. It really opened up a lot of insight into that. So I guess my next question, it just follows up from that. It's probably very juvenile then. It's how do you measure spiritual progress when you are
Bhagavan gave a simple and infallible measuring stick. If you want to measure your spiritual progress, Bhagavan said, perseverance is the only sign of progress. That is, to the extent you are persevering in trying to be self-attentive, to that extent you are progressing. Why? Because when you are trying to be the extent to which you are trying to be self-attentive is a measure of your bhakti, your love to be self-attentive. So the more you're trying, the more you have love for that. The more you have love for that, the more you're making progress. So perseverance is the only sign of progress. It doesn't matter whether you succeed or not. That is, when we are trying to attend to ourselves, we're succeeding for a few seconds. I mean, again, our attention slips away from ourselves. So we are constantly failing, but that doesn't matter. So long as we are persevering in our attempts to bring our attention back to ourselves, that is all that matters. So we shouldn't be trying to measure our progress in terms of how long can I cling to self-attentiveness. It doesn't work like that. We need to be constantly interested. Whenever our attention slips away, trying to bring it back. We shouldn't let it slip away in order to bring it back, but when it does slip away, we try to bring it back. If we're able to hold on for more than a few seconds or steadily, that is very good. But it's perseverance in trying that is most important. It's the only reliable measure of whether we're progressing or not.
Thank you so much for that, Michael. Thank you.
Right. Francis, I see you've got your hand ready. I'll just answer one more question from the emails, and then I'll come to your question, if that's okay. The next question, the person who asked the question has asked to remain anonymous. What they say, I want to ask you about love and loss between a man and a woman. I am getting divorced, and although I understand that everything happens according to prarabdha, I'm wondering how I should react. Do I remain passive and see how things pan out in the courts, or do I hire a really good lawyer and fight for whatever property I can get? I would rather not do the latter because it is not my personality, but my parents and friends want me to be aggressive. Or do I try to talk him out of the divorce, although he has made up his mind and moved out of our house? I'm sorry, this topic is not about self-inquiry and is more about worldly life. I just need to hear a non-biased perspective from Bhagavan's point of view. Firstly, there is nothing that is, there's no simple division between self-inquiry and worldly life. That is, who is living this worldly life? I am. So no problem is divorced from is separated from self-inquiry. So, but in the course of our life, we all face all sorts of problems, and problems like this, the one you face. This problem has come to you according to your destiny. This has been ordained by Bhagavan. It may be I'm sure it is a very distressing and very unpleasant experience to go through. Divorce is never a pleasant thing, but this has been ordained by Bhagavan for your spiritual well-being. So how can you take spiritual advantage of this situation in which you find yourself? In such situations, the clues that Bhagavan has given us about self-investigation are always relevant in all situations. But in these sort of situations, the clues he has given us about self-surrender are also particularly applicable. Now you're faced with a dilemma, whether you should do as your friends and parents urge you and try and fight the matter in court, or whether you just let things take their own course, or whether it's actually not even a dilemma, it's a trilemma, because there's also the option of possibly trying to talk him out of the divorce. Whatever is to happen, as you say, everything that is destined to happen is going to happen anyway. So whatever decision you make will not change things. If you are destined to fight it in the courts, you will be, even though you're reluctant to do so, something will prompt you and you'll do it. Because if that's your destiny, you cannot avoid it. Whereas if it's your destiny just to let things, just not to fight it and let things take whatever their course may be, that will also happen. So you need not worry. Bhagavan has given us very, very clear and explicit advice on all such issues in the 13th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār. That is, this is the paragraph where he's particularly talking about surrender. In the first sentence, he defines what what surrender is. That is, being firmly established in oneself without giving the slightest room to rising up any thought other than Atma-chintana, that means self-attentiveness, is giving oneself to God. Having said that, he's saying that we need not think of anything other than ourselves. We need to attend only to ourselves and not give any room to rising of any other thoughts. Naturally, we may think, oh, but it's necessary. In order to live in this world, I have to think so many thoughts. Bhagavan answers that question in the remaining sentences of this paragraph. In the next sentence, he says, Isam peril evlo bharate potalum avalaveum avavahitu kol kira. That means, however much burden we place on God, he will bear all that burden. So we can give him even the burden of thinking for us. We can give that to him. We can surrender that to him, and he will bear that burden. So the truth is, we need not think of anything. If we are really intent upon giving ourselves to God, we can first and foremost give him the responsibility of thinking for us. And then only we can surrender ourselves completely. So long as we think, I have to think this, I have to do this, we are not surrendering ourselves. So we need to be willing to give all our burden to him. Let him take it all. Then the third sentence is particularly relevant to your question. Sakala karingalayum oru parameshwarya shakti naditu kondira kira padiyal. Since one supreme power, Parameshwara Shakti, supreme divine power, supreme ruling power, is driving all karyas. All karyas means everything that should happen, everything that needs to happen, everything that is destined to happen. All these are being driven by him, by that one power. So since such is the case, Namum aduku adangiramal, instead of we also yielding ourselves to that, that means to that supreme power that is driving everything, Ipadēśa Undiyār, endru sada chintipaduain. That means, why should we be constantly thinking it is necessary to do like this, it's necessary to do like that? Now you're faced with a dilemma. Do you fight it in the courts, or do you just let it be? Or whatever other dilemmas may be there. You've got a choice. You need not, Bhagavan says, you need not even think of it, because all that thinking is it's already been determined in your prarabdha, how much you're to get from a divorce settlement, how you're to get it, whether it is to be achieved through fighting it in the courts, or whether it's just to be achieved by letting things take their own course. Leave it all to Bhagavan. How your body, speech, and mind should act, according to prarabdha, they'll be made to act. Any action on top of that is according to your will. Why should you allow your will to interfere? If you want to surrender yourself to him, you first have to surrender your will and give up all likes and dislikes. You should be indifferent to whether, okay, from a worldly point of view, of course you should fight for it, and you shouldn't be just left out in the street without any house or without any income or anything. You according to justice, the family property, the property that belongs to you and your husband, should be equally divided. That's justice. But this world is not a just place. So often unjust things happen. But when we're on the path of surrender, we don't even have to think about justice. What is true justice? We have usurped this body and mind and say, this is I. This body and mind, they belong only to God. Surrender them back to God. Surrender all your cares, all your concerns. Surrender everything to him. He will bear all the burden. So you need not worry about whether you're to fight it in court, or whether to do this or to do that. All you need to do, Bhagavan has prayed beautifully in the second verse of Aruṇācala Padigam. He says, Ninishtam enishtam, your will is my will. Imbedaku, that is happiness for me. So we shouldn't have any will of our own. We should let his will alone be done. And in the 7th verse of Aruṇācala Navamaṇimālai, the 9 gems, he says, Ennam eduvo adu sevai. Whatever be your thought, you do that. In other words, whatever be your will, you do that. Ennam eduvo adu sevai. Kaneyundran karalineo kardal peruke tairovaye. Oh, beloved, give me only a flood of love for your feet. That is, you let anything happen. You do whatever you will. All I ask is that you give me ever-increasing love for your feet. So that is the path of surrender. And only when we are willing to surrender ourselves in this way will we be able to turn our attention within and know what we actually are. We cannot investigate ourselves without being willing to surrender ourselves, because when we investigate ourselves, ego thereby subsides back in and dissolves back into its source, and everything else disappears along with it. So until we are willing to surrender everything, we will not be able to succeed in this path of self-investigation. So self-surrender and self-investigation are inseparable. So if we are following Bhagavan's path, we have no choice but to surrender everything to him, leave it all to him, let him take care of all these things. Not only all our worldly problems, like the sort of divorce court issues and everything, even our spiritual sadhana, even that we need to leave to him, because can we, by the strength of our own mind, succeed in this path? No, we cannot. It's only to the extent to which we yield ourselves to him, but we can succeed, because it's not we who succeed, it's he who succeeds. Because what is going on is a battle between grace and the will of this little ego with its will. So the more we yield ourselves, the more we allow him to win the battle. And his winning the battle is our winning the battle, because he is nothing but our own self. So I'm sure you don't want to answer now, but I hope this adequately answers your question. Oh, and incidentally, I wrote an article just last month, I think it was, called How to Practice Surrender When Faced with a Dilemma, where I talk about very much this it was a reply to someone who was facing a different problem, but it's applicable to all forms of, in life we are so often faced with dilemmas. So what I wrote in that article, I think, is applicable to anyone who feels they're faced with a dilemma. So that can be found on my blog. And I also forgot to mention those verses of about Deep Wali, which I talked about. I also, early this morning, I posted an article with those verses. So if anyone wants to read those, they can read them. So the next person who has their hand up is Parani. Do you, or someone else had their, okay, Parani, your hand is up. So do you want to ask?
Hello, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, Michael, this is with respect to the practice of self-enquiry,
yes,
where we have to focus our attention on ourselves.
Yes.
And you have also mentioned very clearly, which was a very good helping pointer, thoughts are not a problem, because it is coming as a reminder for us to go back to ourselves again and again. So even if thought comes, it is not a problem. We can ask to whom this thought comes and go back to ourselves. And we have to keep on having that perseverance to come back to ourselves every time we slip from the self-attentiveness.
Yes.
So, but with this, even if you have this understanding and you have that interest and love for that self-attentiveness, where you don't want to pay too much of attention on thoughts, but when we actually start doing it, whether it is during sitting, dedicatedly sitting and doing it, or whether you try to do it in between the days, in between the time during the day, like lunch break or when you travel in the bus or when you sit in the break during the office, when you try to pay attention to it, the thoughts pull you, the attention slips very often. It slips and you're aware of it, you come back, again it slips back, you come back. So it is like too much of slipping and coming back. That the steadiness of that self-attentiveness, somewhere it is nowhere, it is near. And sometimes you feel so demotivated, or you feel so much of effort, because the whole of the practice is about, okay, you have lost in thoughts, again come back. A lot of slipping and coming back, slipping and coming back. And I'm finding it very difficult to steady the attention in myself.
This is the nature of the practice. When you're learning to ride a bicycle, you have to fall so many times, you have to lose your balance so many times before you get the knack of balancing steadily. This is similar. In this, so long as we have our Vishaya vasanas are strong, we will not be able to cling to self-attentiveness for a long duration. We will keep on holding on for a few seconds, and again our attention will be slipping outwards. An analogy that I sometimes use, if you've got a big ball, a big plastic ball, like a beach ball, and it's full of air, if you try and push it into the sea, or into water, when you try and push it down, you can push it a little distance, but if you try and push it further, the further you push it, the more it will try to slip out. So you try to push it down, but it slips up this way. You try to stop it going this way, it goes up that way. So turning our attention back to ourselves and holding our attention on ourselves is a bit like this. We need to, there is a constant resistance. That resistance is our Vishaya vasanas. Our Vishaya vasanas means our liking or inclination to be aware of other things. So long as our Vishaya vasanas are strong, they'll be constantly drawing our attention outwards. But Bhagavan says it doesn't matter. That's all part of the process. Let them draw your attention outwards, you draw it back again. Let them draw it out, you draw it back again. So it doesn't matter how many times we fail, so long as we persevere in trying. We just need to keep on trying. If we could remain steadily in self-attentiveness, very quickly the ego would be consumed, because ego can't survive without holding on to other things. So the closer we get to being aware of ourselves alone, the more the resistance will be. If you've got if a tiger is wounded and it's very weak, and you get it in a corner, though it is very weak, because it's cornered, it's going to fight back very fiercely. Likewise is ego. The weaker it becomes, the more fiercely it's going to fight back, because it's fighting for its very life. I say it, but that it is ourselves. We are the ego who we are fighting with. So it's only the more we try to turn our attention towards ourselves, the more we'll try and resist it also. So it's ultimately a battle within our own will. Do we want to allow ourselves to be dragged away by our vasanas to attend to other things, or do we want to hold on to self-attentiveness? This is, Bhagavan has said, this battle that is constantly going on in the will of the aspirant. This is the significance of all the Puranic stories that talk about the Deva Asura Yuddha, the war between the gods and the demons. The gods are our satvasana, our liking just to be. The demons are our Vishaya vasanas. So we have to keep on fighting. Bhagavan says in Nāṉ Ār, so long as there are enemies in the fort, if you're besieging a fortress, so long as there are enemies in that fortress, they'll keep on coming out. But if you continue cutting them down one by one, eventually the fortress, you'll be able to enter the fortress and capture it. That fortress is our own heart. The enemy coming out of that are Vishaya vasanas. They will continue coming out, but it's good that they come out, because only if they come out, we can cut them down. What is the sword by which we cut them down? By self-attentiveness, by turning our attention back to ourselves. Because at each moment, when a vasana arises and draws our attention towards something else, we're faced with a choice. Do we succumb to that vasana and allow ourselves to go after other things, or do we hold on to self-attentiveness? If we hold on to self-attentiveness, we are thereby weakening that vasana. So, but though Bhagavan says, if you cut them one by one, it's not literally, but one by one we cut the vasanas.
Yeah.
That is, so long as we progressively weaken the vasanas. Because
Right.
when we cultivate love to be self-attentive, we are thereby weakening all Vishaya vasanas. It doesn't matter whether this type of vasana or that type of vasana. I mean, we have so many Vishaya vasanas, so there's so many things but ultimately they're all liking to attend to something other than ourselves. All Vishaya vasanas, essentially, they're all one. Liking to be aware of anything other than ourselves. And so long as we rise as ego, that liking will persist, because we can survive as ego only by attending to other things. So by clinging to ourselves, we are thereby surrendering our will to Bhagavan, and thereby weakening our Vishaya vasanas, and eventually we'll be willing to surrender ourselves completely. Only when we're ready to surrender ourselves completely will we be willing to turn the full 180 degrees and thereby cut the root. Once the root is cut, then the Vishaya vasanas cannot survive without the root, because whose vasanas are they? They're ego's vasanas. Without ego, there are no vasanas. So what is called vasanakshaya, the destruction of vasanas, is nothing but the destruction of ego. We cannot destroy the vasanas without destroying ego.
Right. And just because you spoke about vasanas, when the deeper vasanas arises, no, for example, whatever happened in the childhood, some kind of the hurt, the sexual abuse, or any kind of more deeper vasanas that appear, we don't have to analyze and think about what these vasanas are. We just have to ignore them and
the way to deal with vasanas is to ignore them by holding on to yourself. If we begin to analyze vasanas, we can go on for Janmas. There's no end to them. But vasanas, by their very nature, they're endless. They'll go on. They're self-perpetuating. So long as we attend to anything other than ourselves, we are perpetuating the vasanas. If we want to get rid of the vasanas, Bhagavan says, in a different context, but the analogy is equally fitting here. Just like in a barber shop, the barber doesn't analyze all the different hairs, the short hairs and the long hairs, the gray hairs and the black hairs. All the hair is rubbish. The barber sweeps it up and throws it all out. Likewise, everything other than ourselves, all vasanas, all thoughts, all feelings, everything is rubbish. We should throw it all out and remain as we are. So we don't have to analyze anything other than ourselves. And ourself is not the sort of thing that can be analyzed. We just have to attend to ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michael.
Right. I've got there are more questions here for me to answer. Shall I answer number one? Is everyone happy for me to continue? No objections, I'll continue.
Yes, by all means, yeah.
The next question is from another Michael. He says, I just wanted clarification in what jiva is and how it relates to the self. Is jiva the ego self and not the Atman? Is Atman the self? In the cycle of samsara, is it the jiva that takes rebirth, but the Atman does not? Is it the jiva that must merge back into the Atman? Atman is therefore God, the supreme being, question mark, question mark. Only the jiva is subject to karma and Atma is not, question mark. Are all the gods, including the Holy Trinity, contained within us, the self, namely Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva? Yes, jiva means ego. Jiva is just another name for ego. Jiva, more or less, we can translate as soul. It is nothing but the ego. Atman, the Sanskrit term Atman, people often take the term Atman to mean the self, but that's a rather misleading translation. Firstly, because when we say the self, we are reifying it. We're making it sound like a thing, almost like an object. that is what we actually, when Bhagavan wanted to distinguish ego from what we actually are, rather than using the term Atman, he used the term Atma Swarupa or just Swarupa. Atma Swarupa means, Atman simply means oneself. So Atman can, in some contexts, refer to ego, like as in the term, for example, the term for self-surrender in Sanskrit is Atma Samarpanam. Bhagavan often uses the term Atma Samarpanam. The Atman that we need to surrender is ego, not our real self. So Atman can refer to our real nature, or it can refer to ourself as ego. When Bhagavan wanted to distinguish between ego and our real nature, he referred to our real nature either as Swarupa, which Swarupa literally means own form, but it implies the real nature. Or he used the term Atma Swarupa. Atma Swarupa means the real nature of ourself, or real nature of oneself. So rather than using the term the self, I will use the term Swarupa. So Swarupa is what we actually are. Ego is what we is this false awareness. What is Swarupa? Swarupa is just the fundamental awareness, I am. Ego is the same I am, but mixed with adjuncts. Ego or jiva is the same I am, but mixed with adjuncts. So as ego or as jiva, we are always aware of ourselves, not just as I am, we're aware of ourselves as I am Michael, or I am so-and-so. That name Michael is the name of a body. So we are identifying ourselves with a name and a form. The names and forms are adjuncts. In Upadēśa Undiyār, Bhagavan says in verse 24, he says, "Irakum ikayal isa jivagal oru porale arba undipara upadi unavei verundipara." That means, by their existing nature, God and soul are just one substance. That one substance is what he refers to as existing nature. That is our real nature as sat, as just being. In that we are one. We and God are one. And then he says, only adjunct awareness is different. That is, what we actually are, as he said in the previous verse, what we actually are is just that pure awareness, which is what actually exists. So that is, as pure awareness, pure awareness is what God actually is. So in our fundamental nature of just being awareness, we and God are one substance, one thing. But because we have God is nothing but that which is shining in our heart as I am. That is the fundamental awareness of our own existence. That is God. But as I said, we are not aware of ourselves just as God is aware of himself just as I am. But we are not aware of ourselves just as I am. We are aware of ourselves as I am Michael, or I am this, or I am that. So we are identifying ourselves with certain adjuncts, with the name and form of a body. So our awareness of ourselves as this body, that is what he refers to here as adjunct awareness. Then in the next verse, verse 25, he says, Tane upadi vittu ovadu, tan isan tane unavadam undipara, tanai olivadam undipara. That means knowing oneself, leaving adjuncts, or knowing oneself without adjuncts, is itself knowing God, because God shines as oneself. So since God is when he says God shines as oneself, what he means by oneself is what we actually are, which is I am, the pure I am. So God is always shining in our heart as the pure I am. So if we see ourselves without any adjuncts, we are seeing God. We are knowing God. So the ego or jiva is nothing other than our real nature, but it's our real nature mixed with adjuncts. Remove the adjuncts and what remains is our real nature. So in substance, ego and our real nature are one. But what the difference between jiva and our real nature is only the adjuncts that we have attached ourselves to. So you say, is Atman the self? Well, as I said, the term Atman means oneself. It's often used in this to refer to our real nature, but it can also refer to ego. So we need it. It's according to the context. We need to understand according to the context in what sense the term Atman is being used. Just like in English, we say oneself. When we say oneself or ourself, it can refer either to ourself as ego or to ourself as we actually are. Regarding your next question about is the cycle of in the cycle of samsara, is it the jiva that takes rebirth? Yes, it's not our real nature. It's only as ego that we're taking rebirth. For our real nature is neither born nor dies. It is ever as it is. It is immutable. It never undergoes any change whatsoever. Bhagavan sometimes defined reality as that which is eternal, unchanging, and self-shining. What is eternal, what is constant, is only that awareness I am. That is, all other things appear and disappear. But one thing that continues through all the three states, waking, dream, and sleep, is our fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. In waking and dream, we're aware of I am and other things. In sleep, we're aware only of I am. So what is eternal is only I am. What is unchanging is only I am. That is, all other things change. But I am ever remains as it is without ever undergoing any change. And I am is self-shining in that it is always, it doesn't depend upon any other thing to know it. As I am, we are aware of our own existence. So we are self-shining. So that fundamental awareness I am, that alone is what is real. That is what we actually are. That never takes birth or never undergoes any change. It's only as ego that we undergo birth. What is called birth or rebirth, as Bhagavan said, our whole life is nothing but a dream. So what is called the cycle of births and deaths, it is the dreamer of all dreams is ego. When we dream a dream, in a dream, we always experience ourselves as a person in that dream. That is, we always experience ourselves as a body within the dream. But that person we seem to be in a dream is not the dreamer. The person we seem to be in a dream is a part of the dream. It is as ego that we are dreaming all this. And as ego, we dream all this, and we dream a person as herself. So every life is just a dream. So in this dream, at the beginning of the dream, we seem to be a young child, and we've grown up, and then we went through so many experiences, and now we are older, and we know we're going to get older and older, and one day we're going to die. So this dream is going to come to an end. When this dream comes to an end, that is the end of this person that we now seem to be. That is, Michael will be no more. Neither this Michael nor that Michael. Finished. Well, when we're dead, the person is finished. But the one who took that person as I, that is the jiva or ego, because that is the dreamer, it will continue dreaming other dreams. So when Michael comes to an end, this ego will maybe spend some time in sleep, and again it will begin to dream some other dream, and until ego is annihilated by self-knowledge, the dreaming will continue. The dreams will continue. So yes, all these birth and death, and this constant cycle of samsara, it is all only for ego. In fact, Bhagavan says in verse 24 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he says samsara is another name for ego. So there's no samsara other than ego. I mean, independent of ego. Ego itself is samsara. And then you say, is it the jiva that must merge back into Atman? Yes, as jiva, as ego, we need to merge back into our source, which is our real nature, what we actually are. Atman is therefore God. Yes, what we actually are is God. As Bhagavan says in substance, we and God are one. That is, we are one substance, just like a ring and a necklace are one. They're both gold. The substance is the same. The form alone is different. So what separates us from God is our attachment to form, because we've attached ourselves to this name and form of this person called Michael. We now seem to be something separate from God. If we give up all these adjuncts, this name and form, and cling to I am alone, then we will see that we are nothing but God. As Bhagavan says, seeing ourselves without adjuncts is seeing God or knowing God, because God shines as ourself. Then you go on to ask, is Jiva subject to karma and Atman is not? Yes. It's only the jiva that is, jiva is the doer of the action and the experiencer of the fruit of the Atman. Our real nature is not touched by these things at all. Our real nature is the screen on which all these things appear and disappear, but it itself is untouched. Are all the gods, including the Holy Trinity, contained within us? Yes. They're all nothing but ourselves. Incidentally, you say Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva. There's a difference. The Trinity is not Brahman. The Trinity is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma is the creator. Vishnu is the sustainer, and Shiva is the destroyer. The Brahma with a long A, that is a masculine noun. Brahman with ending with an N, a short A and an N, that is an impersonal noun. So Brahman means the absolute reality, what we actually are, our real nature. Brahma is a god. So these gods, they cannot be anything other than ourselves. As Bhagavan says, by their existing nature, God and Jiva are one substance. So they seem to be different. So long as we limit ourselves as a name and form, Brahma seems to be someone different, Vishnu seems to be someone different, Shiva seems to be someone different. But if we see ourselves without adjunct, we will see that all are only one. There is only one. There's no all other than one. As it's said in the Upanishads, Ekam eva advityam, one only without a second. What is that one only without a second? That is what we actually are. So I hope that adequately answers your question, Michael.
Hi, Michael. Yeah, I answered a lot of it. It's just, my conceptual mind. Yes. It's just trying to picture about the jiva and like how they might show in a movie or something that, the soul leaving the body
yes.
and entering another body kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is it like a soul or, my conceptual mind wants to picture it, kind of thing.
It is, that is, most people, when you talk about rebirth, they think that when the body dies, the soul leaves the body and goes off and enters some other body. That is that's a very crude understanding. According to Bhagavan, it's all a dream. So now we are dreaming ourselves to be this body. When we go to bed tonight and have a dream, we experience ourselves as a body and we go through so many actions. That body we experience as ourselves in a dream is not this body. This body is supposedly lying asleep in the bed, but we are engaging in so many activities. So whatever body we experience as ourselves is nothing but a projection of it's nothing but our own projection. We project the body and take it to be I.
And the other thing was like, I think you said, if the jiva takes rebirth, that's a completely new person or something. And so my question was like, does it take memory with it?
No, we don't.
I think they're referred to as samsaras or something, because you get the, people, just stories of people being reborn and remembering their past life.
Yeah, it does. It can happen. It can happen, but generally, thank goodness we forget. If Bhagavan said it's a blessing that we forget all that we've done in previous births. But generally, memory ends with the person, or more or less. What continues is the vasanas. The vasanas are our inclinations, are the seed form of our likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, and everything. So those are carried on.
And like, so, you know, if you, for instance, in somebody's case, if they, you know, severely diminished their vasanas,
yes.
Will that progress carry on to the next life if it had to? Will that progress still be held?
Exactly. That is, in each life, when we're following a spiritual path, we are gradually purifying the mind. Purifying the mind means we are weakening the Vishaya vasanas. So any progress we make in one life, if ego isn't destroyed in that life, it'll be carried on to the next life. So there's no going back in this spiritual path. Whatever purification of mind, that means whatever weakening of our vasanas is achieved in this life, will carry on to the next life. So in this lifetime, we've got this interest in practicing Bhagavan's path of self-investigation and self-surrender. That will come with us. We will, in the next life, somehow or other, we'll come across Bhagavan's teachings again, and we'll again continue following, we'll continue following the same path.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. That's answered my questions. Yeah.
Incidentally, generally speaking, Bhagavan sometimes used the term jiva, but Bhagavan's preferred term was ego or mind, because but Bhagavan always kept things very, very simple. So though jiva is another name for ego or mind, that is mind in the sense of the subjective aspect of the mind, the ego. It is, and in some places Bhagavan did use it, but it's, when we think about ego, it's a bit more direct, because what does ego mean? Ego means I. Whereas people think of a soul, some people argue, do we have a soul or not? As if soul is a possession of ours. We are the soul. That is, we are the soul, or ego is the possessor, not a possession. So ego is a very direct term. And he also often used the term, the thought called I, as another term for referring to ego or jiva. The thought called I is very direct. We all know I. So the reason he called it the thought called I is the pure I is not a thought, but when I is mixed with adjuncts, then it becomes a thought. So the thought called I is another term that Bhagavan often used to refer to ego. So Bhagavan generally used very simple and very direct language. Though he could, when appropriate, he could use more technical language, he generally kept things very simple, very clear.